It always starts the same way. You study the charts, sharpen your strategy, wait patiently for the setup, and when it finally appears, you enter. Everything seems perfect. But then, it happens. A sudden market move, a flicker in price, and before you know it, your heartbeat races, your palms sweat, and the confidence you once had evaporates like mist in the morning sun. You stare at the screen, not just at numbers, but at a reflection of your own hesitation, fear, and second-guessing. You ask yourself quietly, why does this keep happening? Even when I've done everything right, tell me this. Where are you watching this from? And what time is it for you? Drop it in the comments, because I want to remind you, wherever you are, whatever time it is, you're not the only one fighting this battle. There are thousands like you, sitting silently before a glowing screen, locked in a war far more intense than anything the charts could show. Because the truth is, the battle isn't on the chart. It never was. The most ruthless opponent you'll ever face in trading doesn't wear a suit on Wall Street or move billions with the flick of a finger. That opponent lives inside you, in your thoughts, in the tight knot in your stomach when the price moves against you, in the voice that whispers, "You're not good enough. You'll lose again." That is where the real war begins. This isn't a poetic metaphor, it's biological. The stress of trading activates the same fight-or-flight response that kicks in when a predator is chasing you. Except here, the predator is uncertainty. And your brain, programmed to seek safety, starts looking for control in a place that offers none. That's when the panic sets in. That's when you close trades too early, or refuse to exit losing ones, hoping that maybe this time, the market will show mercy. But the market has no mercy. It has no awareness of your hopes, your rent, or your last loss. It is indifferent. And in that indifference lies its purity. It is a mirror. Nothing more, nothing less. And like any good mirror, it reflects what you bring to it. Think of a boxer who steps into the ring, fully aware that punches are coming. He doesn't fear them. He's trained for them. He sees them not as threats, but as part of the dance. Now compare that to a trader who steps into the market and flinches at every move, fears every pullback, and gets paralyzed by every red candle. One has embraced the nature of his battleground. The other hasn't. What makes this even harder is that most traders walk into this world believing it's about knowledge. That if they read enough books, watch enough YouTube videos, or master enough indicators, they'll conquer the market. But eventually, they all hit a wall. That wall isn't made of numbers. It's made of beliefs, conditioned responses, childhood programming. It's made of moments in the past when they were punished for being wrong, scolded for taking risks, or made to believe that mistakes equal failure. The market exposes all of this. Like a ruthless teacher, it strips away your illusions. Your fancy strategies won't save you if your nervous system is hijacked by fear. Your backtesting won't help if your ego can't handle being wrong. This is why trading feels so personal. Because it is. There was a young man, let's call him Ramesh, who entered trading with excitement. He placed a small trade thinking, it's just Ross 10,000, low risk, I'll get some experience. But as the trade moved into a loss, his heart rate soared, his hands shook, and the screen became a tunnel of doom. It wasn't about money anymore. It was about identity. Am I even cut out for this? He wondered. And in that question lies the seed of the true trading journey. Not about understanding markets, but about understanding self. You see, success in trading doesn't start with candlestick patterns. It starts with self-awareness, with the quiet courage to notice your fear, acknowledge your doubt, and stay with them, without letting them steer the wheel. Because the moment you make peace with discomfort, you gain clarity. Not clarity about the market, but clarity within yourself. And that's the clarity that leads to better decisions. A professional trader once said, "Trading isn't about predicting the market. It's about managing yourself when the market does something unexpected." That's the line most people skip over. They look for control outside when the real game is about control inside. Now here's the painful twist. You can have the perfect setup and still lose. You can follow every rule and still get stopped out. And that's where most traders fall apart. They believe that doing everything right should guarantee success. But markets don't operate on guarantees. They operate on probabilities. That realization is a turning point. Some walk away, unable to cope with the uncertainty. Others adapt. They begin to see losses not as punishments, but as part of the process. They stop measuring their self-worth by a single trade. They start asking better questions. Did I follow my process? Instead of, did I win? That shift from results-based identity to process-based identity is where the transformation begins. You become less reactive, more grounded. You stop chasing the market and start dancing with it. You realize that real mastery is silent, invisible. It's not in how loud your conviction is, but in how calm your response is when everything goes wrong. The inner war is real, but it's also winnable. Not by fighting harder, but by listening deeper. Listening to the voice within that says, stay present, stay grounded, stay disciplined. Because once you win that war, the market no longer feels like an enemy. It becomes your teacher, and eventually, your ally. And this is just the beginning. In the next section, we'll look at one of the greatest illusions that traders fall prey to, the illusion of certainty, and how embracing probability changes everything. Imagine holding a coin in your hand. You flip it once. Heads. Flip again. Tails. You keep flipping, and by the third time, tails comes up again. Now, instinctively, your mind whispers, next should be heads, right? It's a natural impulse. Your brain is wired to seek balance, to find patterns, to make sense of randomness. But the truth is, that coin has no memory. Each flip is independent. Still, the illusion of certainty creeps in. This is where most traders start slipping. Not on the chart, but in the mind. Because while we may acknowledge that markets are unpredictable, deep down, we don't act like we believe it. We trade as if we expect certainty. We behave like the market owes us consistency just because we've done our homework. That illusion is subtle, dangerous, and emotionally expensive. There was a trader once, confident, sharp, methodical. Let's call him Dev. He had a solid system and a record of good trades. But after a streak of 4 losses, something cracked. On the 5th trade, though the setup was still valid, doubt seeped in. His hands trembled as he clicked the button. His heart thudded, not from excitement, but fear. And sure enough, that trade turned into the biggest loss of his month. Not because the system failed, but because his belief in certainty did. Dev fell into a common trap. He confused probability with prediction. He assumed that because he followed all the right steps, the outcome should align with expectation. But probability doesn't work that way. It never promises the next trade. It promises nothing at all in the short term. What it offers is edge over time. And unless you truly internalize this, every loss will feel like betrayal. Think of a casino owner. He doesn't panic if a player wins 5 hands in a row. He knows his game is designed to win 55 out of 100 times. That's his edge. He doesn't need to win every round. He just needs players to keep playing. The longer the game runs, the more the odds work in his favor. A professional trader thinks the same way. He doesn't obsess over individual trades. He's not looking to be right every time. He's looking to apply his edge consistently, knowing that the law of large numbers will do its job. But here's the catch. New traders don't operate this way. They treat every trade like a test of identity. If they lose, they feel like a failure. If they win, they feel invincible. That emotional roller coaster is precisely what derails consistency. The real challenge isn't technical, it's psychological. Our entire education system is built on certainty. Study hard, pass the test. Work diligently, get a paycheck. Cause and effect, simple and predictable. But trading breaks that model. You can follow every rule, manage every risk, and still lose. Not once, but multiple times. And that violates everything we were taught. Until you accept that losses are supposed to happen, even when you do everything right, you will continue to sabotage yourself. You will tweak systems prematurely. You will abandon strategies in fear. You will revenge trade to win back your losses. All of which have nothing to do with the market, and everything to do with your discomfort with uncertainty. There was a woman named Alicia. She was an intraday trader, careful, calculated. One day, she lost 3 trades in a row. Her mind tightened. She told herself, the next one has to win. And with that desperate conviction, she took a larger position, more than she normally would. But the market didn't care. It moved against her. The result? A massive loss. Not because of her method, but because of her misunderstanding. She had replaced edge with emotion. This is where trading demands a new kind of maturity. The maturity to allow yourself to be wrong and not make it mean anything about who you are. The maturity to trust the process, even when it hurts. The maturity to keep flipping the coin, not expecting heads or tails, but simply honoring the integrity of your system. Think of a scientist running an experiment. Each test gives her more data, not validation or failure, just information. The market is your lab. Each trade is a test. You observe, adapt, but you don't attach. The moment you start needing a result to confirm your worth, you become emotionally entangled. And emotions are expensive in this game. This shift to probabilistic thinking changes the game. You begin to detach. You start seeing setups not as guarantees, but as opportunities. You stop asking, will this trade work? And start asking, does this setup align with my edge? That simple change in language transforms your entire emotional relationship with trading. One trader once said, I don't expect to be right. I expect to manage whatever happens. That's the spirit of probabilistic mastery. It's not sexy. It doesn't sell courses. But it's the foundation of consistency. So the next time you trade, ask yourself, am I here to be right or to be disciplined? Am I measuring success by one trade or by how well I followed my rules? Because only one of those questions leads to growth. This also means letting go of the fantasy that more information will make you immune to uncertainty. You can study every indicator, follow every guru, and still face losses. Not because you're inadequate, but because that's how markets move. It's not your job to control the outcome. It's your job to show up, follow your plan, and let the math play out. Think of Ria, a seasoned trader who used to spiral emotionally after every loss. But when she began seeing losses as data points instead of judgments, something shifted. She stopped blaming herself. she stopped seeking perfection. She stopped needing to be right. And ironically, her win rate went up, not because she changed her strategy, but because she changed her mindset. Letting go of certainty is terrifying. It feels like jumping out of a plane without knowing if the parachute will open. But in reality, it's more like boarding a train with a ticket to a known destination. You just don't know what scenery you'll pass through. The train will get there, if you stay on it. And this is why probability is not about numbers. It's about peace. It's about knowing that you've designed a system that works over time, and trusting that the temporary discomforts are simply part of the ride. In the next section, we'll go deeper into how we interpret the market through our own distorted lens, and how perception, not price, often becomes our greatest obstacle. Two traders sit side by side, staring at the exact same chart. One says with confidence, "This is clearly going up." The other shakes his head. "It's about to crash." Same candles, same price action, same indicators, and yet opposite conclusions. Why? Because trading isn't about what you see, it's about how you see it. We like to believe that we analyze objectively, that we're reading the market as it is. But the truth is, most of the time, we're projecting our inner world onto it. The chart becomes a canvas, and our perception becomes the brush. Every line we draw, every signal we interpret, is colored by fear, memory, hope, or even ego. Let me tell you a story. There was a trader named Rahul. He had recently taken a webinar on chart patterns and learned that a head and shoulders formation was a bearish signal. The very next day, he spotted something that resembled that pattern. Without further thought, without checking volume confirmation or context, he shorted the market. It went against him. Hard. He lost not just money, but confidence. When he looked back, he realized something unsettling. The pattern was incomplete. The indicators didn't align, but in the heat of the moment, his mind didn't care. It saw what it wanted to see. That is the power of selective perception. We all have it. Our brains are wired to seek consistency with existing beliefs. This means we tend to notice information that supports our viewpoint and ignore what contradicts it. It's not just a trading flaw, it's a human flaw. Now imagine how dangerous that is in trading, where stakes are real and decisions must be clear. You think you're following your strategy, but you're actually following your emotion. You're not reacting to the market. You're reacting to an old loss, an unhealed fear, a subconscious belief that keeps whispering, "Don't miss this chance." There was another trader, Aisha, who once got burned badly on a particular setup. The next time that same pattern appeared, she didn't see a trading opportunity. She saw a threat. Her subconscious flinched, and she avoided the trade, even though everything lined up perfectly. Later, the trade moved exactly as predicted, and she watched it go without her. Not because her system failed, but because her perception did. Here's the problem. The market doesn't lie, but the way we interpret it does. We say the market is deceptive, but what we really mean is that our filters are distorted. We see what fear allows us to see. We ignore what anxiety tells us to ignore. It gets even trickier when our beliefs are reinforced by previous experiences. If you once exited a trade early and avoided a loss, you start believing that playing it safe is wise. But in doing so, you also cap your potential. Or if you once held too long and got a big win, you might start overstaying in every trade, waiting for that magical moment again. This is how perception forms loops, some protective, others destructive. Let's go deeper. Have you ever felt like the market was out to get you? Like the moment you enter, it reverses? That's not delusion. It's perception collapse. You've been burned enough times that your nervous system now associates trading with danger. So your decisions become reactions, not responses. In psychology, this is called emotional anchoring. Past experiences become reference points, shaping how you see current situations. You're not reacting to the chart. You're reacting to the ghost of a past trade. Breaking this loop starts with awareness. After every trade, good or bad, ask yourself, what was I actually seeing? Was it the chart, or was it me? That one question can begin to dissolve the fog between perception and truth. The best traders aren't just good at analysis. They're good at self-observation. They notice when emotion is coloring their vision. They pause. They recalibrate. They look again. It helps to journal, not just trades, but emotions. What did you feel before the entry? What were you afraid of during the hold? What story were you telling yourself when you exited? Over time, you'll see patterns, not on the chart, but in your mind. And when you begin to notice those patterns, you gain power. You stop being a puppet to perception and start becoming its master. You catch yourself before you act. You choose instead of react. And that choice, repeated daily, builds the foundation of true trading discipline. Remember this: the chart is neutral. It doesn't care about your fears, hopes, or goals, but your perception does. And if you don't manage it, it will manage you. A trader once shared how he used both MACD and RSI as confirmation tools. One day, they gave opposite signals. MACD said buy, RSI said wait. But because MACD aligned with what he wanted to see, he ignored the RSI. The trade went south. Again, not a technical failure, a perceptual one. Our mind seeks comfort. It prefers to see what reinforces our narrative. But trading is not a comfort game. It's a clarity game. The more uncomfortable truths you're willing to see, the stronger your decisions become. There's another layer to this: childhood conditioning. If you grew up being punished for mistakes, your adult mind may associate being wrong with being unworthy. So you avoid taking trades that might fail, not because they're bad setups, but because you fear what failure says about you. That's not trading, that's trauma. And unless we separate the two, we will forever blend past wounds into present decisions. There was a woman named Kavita who always exited too early. Even when the market moved in her favor, she couldn't hold. Why? Because somewhere deep down, she didn't believe she deserved to win big. Profit felt like something that would be taken away, and so she took it first. Too soon. Again, not a chart issue, a perception issue. So what's the solution? It begins with humility. The humility to admit that you don't see the market as it is. You see it through your fears, your wins, your beliefs. You see it through yourself. But in that humility lies liberation. Because once you accept that your view is colored, you start cleaning the lens. You start questioning assumptions. You stop acting from autopilot. And slowly, decision by decision, perception becomes clearer. That clarity? That's the trader's real edge. In the next section, we'll dive deeper into the source of these perceptions, our beliefs, and how they silently govern every action we take in the market, often without us even realizing it. There's a voice inside you that speaks right before every trade. Sometimes it says, "This time will be different." Other times it whispers, "Don't mess this up." But no matter what words it uses, that voice doesn't come from logic. It comes from belief. Beliefs are the invisible threads that tie together our thoughts, emotions, and behaviors. And in trading, they're the silent architects of our decisions. You can follow a perfect strategy, understand risk management, and have top-tier indicators. But if your beliefs are misaligned, you'll still sabotage yourself. Let me tell you about a trader named Arjun. He was educated, intelligent, and had built a solid trading plan. But every time the market moved against him, he froze. He wouldn't cut the loss. Small drawdowns became big ones, over and over again. One day I asked him, "Why don't you just exit when the plan says so?" He said, "Because deep down, I feel like admitting loss is the same as admitting failure." That belief didn't come from trading. It came from childhood. From a household where losing was punished, where mistakes were seen as weakness. And now, decades later, that old belief had followed him to the charts, like an unwanted shadow. This is what most traders don't see. They think their problem is discipline. But often, the real issue is that discipline is clashing with an unconscious belief. One says exit, the other screams hold. And unless you uncover the belief, the scream wins. Think of beliefs like the operating system of your trading mind. You may install new indicators, tweak strategies, watch new tutorials, but if the OS is corrupted, nothing works properly. It freezes, it crashes. It loops the same errors again and again. There was a woman named Pooja. She was hyper-cautious. She never took trades without double confirmation. Still, she missed out on great opportunities. When asked why, she said, "I can't afford to make a mistake." Dig deeper, and you find a belief. If I'm wrong, I'm not capable. That's not about trading. That's about self-worth. And this is how beliefs turn deadly in the markets. Because unlike most jobs where mistakes can be hidden or fixed, trading makes them immediate and expensive. So if you tie your self-esteem to outcomes, every tick against you feels like a personal attack. Let's be clear. Beliefs aren't always logical. They're emotional. They often come from pain, not principle. A trader might believe the market is rigged, not because it is, but because they once lost money in a flash crash and never processed that trauma. Another might believe, I always lose, simply because a string of early losses convinced them they're unlucky. But here's the most dangerous part. Most of the time, you don't even realize you have these beliefs. They operate in the background, steering your hands while you think you're making conscious choices. So how do you uncover them? Start by observing repeated behavior patterns. Do you always hesitate to enter? Always exit too soon? Always add to losers? Ask yourself, what story is playing in the background when I do this? And then, be brutally honest with the answer. There was a trader, Karan, who always booked profits early. He couldn't hold a winning trade, even when the system told him to. After several conversations, he realized the root was a belief. If I don't take it now, the market will take it from me. That belief came from scarcity, not the market. Once he saw it clearly, he could start changing it. He created a new belief. Profit is not a gift. It's a result of my process. And with that reframe, his behavior slowly changed. Not overnight, but trade by trade. Reprogramming beliefs is not about affirmations or forced positivity. It's about awareness. When you recognize that a belief no longer serves your growth, you give yourself permission to challenge it. Start asking questions. Is every loss a failure? Does making a mistake define my worth? Is risk always something to fear or something to manage? If the answers surprise you, good. That means you're uncovering unconscious scripts. And once they're visible, they're no longer in control. Here's the beautiful irony. The market doesn't care about your beliefs. It doesn't react to your fear, your past, or your guilt. It just moves. And in that movement, it offers you a mirror, not of itself, but of you. When you stop fighting the market and start listening to what it reflects, you begin the real journey. Because the market isn't trying to punish you. It's trying to show you where you still believe things that hurt you. Let me share one more story. A young trader named Mira had a belief that discipline meant rigidity. She thought if she followed her plan and still lost, that meant the plan was broken. So she kept switching strategies. Nothing stuck. Eventually, she asked herself, what if discipline doesn't mean never losing? What if it means sticking to a process even when I lose? That shift changed everything. Her trades didn't magically win, but she stopped spiraling. And for the first time, she felt calm during uncertainty. You are not your trades. You are not your P&L. You are not your past. But your beliefs, they shape how you see all of it. And if you want to grow, not just as a trader, but as a human being, you must confront them. Not by force, by curiosity. Ask, listen, and allow. In the next section, we'll explore how even the noblest goals can lead us astray when they're rooted in fear, pressure, or ego, and how redefining what success means can restore the clarity you've been missing. From a young age, Rahul had been taught that if you want something badly enough, set a goal, work hard, and don't stop until you get it. That was his mantra. So when he entered trading, he brought the same mindset. He opened his spreadsheet, mapped out his target. $5,000 profit per month. Everything was planned. How many trades, what risk per trade, expected win rate. But within the first week, things unraveled. 2 losses in a row shook his confidence. The target, once a motivating light, became a burning spotlight. Fear replaced focus. The original goal of $5,000 quickly turned into just recover the losses. Then it turned into revenge trading. By the end of the month, instead of making money, Rahul was down $70,000. It wasn't because he didn't work hard. It wasn't because his strategy was wrong. It was because his relationship with goals was toxic. You see, goals aren't inherently bad. They can inspire action, focus effort, and give structure to chaos. But in trading, the wrong kind of goals can be the very thing that breaks you, especially when the goal is entirely outcome-based. I want to make her $10,000 this week. I need to win this trade. I must recover that loss. These are traps, because trading, by nature, is probabilistic. It doesn't guarantee that your efforts will align with your outcomes in the short term. When you set goals based solely on results, you create pressure. And pressure breeds emotional decisions. There was a swimmer once asked how he kept winning. His answer was simple. I don't think about winning. I just focus on perfecting each stroke. That mindset is golden for traders. When your mind is obsessed with hitting a result, your attention fragments. You begin to see every trade as a means to that result. And when the trade goes against you, it feels like the goal is slipping away. That's when panic enters. That's when mistakes multiply. But if your goal is process-based, I will follow my plan. I will size my risk properly. I will remain calm regardless of outcome. Then you anchor into the present. You measure success by your actions, not the market's reaction. That gives you back your power. There's a trader named Neeraj. Every morning, he sat down with the goal of making $1,000. Some days he did, some days he didn't. But the days he missed, he would overtrade, chase setups, and enter trades with no real signal, just to catch up. It always ended the same. Losses, regret, self-doubt. Then, one day, he changed the question. Instead of asking, "How much can I make today?" he asked, "Can I follow my rules today, regardless of what happens?" Everything shifted. He started executing with precision, detached from the P&L. His performance stabilized. Profits followed. Not because he chased them, but because he let go of needing them. Goals are not bad, but they must be within your control. You can't control how much the market gives. You can't control if today's trade hits target. But you can control your decisions. You can control your discipline. You can control your reactions. That's where true progress lives. Let me give you a metaphor. Think of an archer. When he draws the bow and aims at the target, his full focus is on form, posture, breath, and release. If he obsesses over the bullseye, his hand shakes, his breath shortens, and he misses. But if he focuses on the process of the shot, the arrow finds its way. Trading is no different. The chart is the target. The trade is the arrow. Your mindset is the bow. Here's another dilemma traders face. If I don't have a profit goal, how will I stay motivated? That's a fair question. The answer is, yes, you need a goal. But it must be something that fuels consistency, not pressure. For example, when I will journal every trade today, I will accept losses without emotional reaction. I will stick to my max loss limit. These goals are internal. They build habits. And those habits, over time, build consistency. There's a woman named Artie. She had a brilliant system, but struggled with confidence. Every time she set a profit target, she would crumble under the pressure. Then she shifted her focus. She made her goal. I want to be the kind of trader who shows up every day with discipline. That one change took her out of the emotional whirlpool. Profits came later. Confidence came first. And this is the trap no one talks about. When goals become obsessions, they stop guiding you and start suffocating you. There's also the issue of shifting goals. Let's say your original target was Rs $2,000, but after a few losses, your goal becomes just break even. You trade differently. Your decision quality drops. Now it's not about clarity, it's about desperation. You're no longer following your edge. You're negotiating with your fear. But what if your goal never shifted? What if your goal was always, stick to my process, no matter what? Then your identity as a trader wouldn't swing with the P&L. Then you'd have something stronger than hope. You'd have conviction. And conviction isn't loud. It doesn't come from shouting, "I must win." It comes from doing the right thing again and again, even when no one's watching, even when the result isn't in your favor. Trading is not about winning every day. It's about showing up every day as the kind of trader who deserves to win. Let's bring this full circle. Profit is not a goal, it's a byproduct. Your real job is not to extract money from the market. It's to become the kind of person who makes good decisions consistently, regardless of outcome. In the next section, we'll dig into the quiet force that separates winners from the rest. Not talent, not strategy, but discipline. That invisible edge that you never see on a chart, but defines every trade you'll ever take. Vivek had always been drawn to the fast, flashy side of trading. The green candles, the big gains, the adrenaline rush of making money quickly. He studied hard, learned strategies, and even saw early success. On his first day, he followed his plan and made a small but solid profit. He felt invincible. Then came the next day. Same strategy, same setup, but the trade went against him. Panic hit. Instead of exiting, he widened the stop loss, hoping the market would reverse. It didn't. The loss grew. That night, he couldn't sleep. His mind spun with regret. I knew better. So why didn't I act better? Because knowledge isn't discipline. Discipline is the bridge between what you know and what you do. It's invisible, unglamorous, and often overlooked. But in trading, it is everything. Most people think discipline is about forcing yourself to follow rules. But that's not quite it. Real discipline is recognizing your emotions, accepting their presence, and still choosing not to act on them. It's not about becoming emotionless. It's about becoming unmoved. The market will always tempt you. Every tick is a test. A signal appears, and your mind says, "This could be it. Go bigger." A loss happens, and your gut screams, "Chase it back." Discipline is the calm voice that says, "Follow the plan," not your feelings. There was a professional trader who once said, "Discipline begins where comfort ends." That's it. True discipline starts the moment things get uncomfortable. When the trade goes sideways. When your instinct says, "Just this once, let me bend the rule." That's where your edge is decided. Not in setups, but in self-control. Think of it like this. A pilot doesn't get tested on a clear day with blue skies. He's tested when the storm hits. Same with trading. Anyone can follow a plan when things are working. The real test is when it's not. Discipline is boring. It doesn't give dopamine hits. It doesn't feel heroic. It feels repetitive, mechanical. But that's what makes it powerful. Let me tell you about a trader named Mina. Every morning, she'd run a pre-market routine, analyze key levels, define risk, write down her plan. But when the market opened, emotion took over. She'd abandon the plan and chase moves that felt right. After months of inconsistency, she made a decision. No matter what happens, I will not deviate from my plan. For 3 months, she didn't miss a rule. Her win rate didn't skyrocket, but her emotional state stabilized. She began to trust herself. That internal trust, earned only through discipline, became her new foundation. Discipline is freedom. It frees you from regret, from overthinking, from the chaos of second-guessing. It is the internal anchor in the external storm. And here's what makes discipline so hard. It's invisible. You don't get praise for it. You don't post about it. But every successful trader has it. Quietly, relentlessly. You might be thinking, but what if I'm not naturally disciplined? You're not alone. Discipline isn't a trait. It's a skill. And like any skill, it's built through repetition and awareness. Start small. Create a single trading rule. Something like, I will define my stop loss before every trade. Then stick to it, no matter what. Every time you do, you're training your nervous system. You're rewiring your mind to trust structure over emotion. Here's the secret. The more you practice discipline, the less you'll need to force it. It becomes your default state. Your nervous system adapts. It stops seeing rules as restrictions and starts seeing them as protection. There's another key, recovery. Discipline doesn't mean perfection. You will slip. You'll break a rule. You'll let emotion win. The real question is, what happens next? Do you spiral into shame? Or do you pause, reflect, and return stronger? There was a day trader, Kabir, who followed a rule for months. Never risk more than 1% per trade. But one day, he broke it. The trade went bad. He lost 5% in one click. For a moment, he felt destroyed. But then he took a deep breath, reviewed his journal, and wrote, I broke the rule. I accept it. Tomorrow, I begin again. That's discipline, too. The ability to recover with integrity is what keeps you on the path. You don't need to be perfect. You need to be committed. Think of soldiers training for battle. They don't train to be fearless. They train to act despite fear. You too are training for a battlefield, the market. And your weapon isn't prediction, it's poise. When you're disciplined, your decisions are consistent. And consistency is what the market rewards. Not brilliance, not aggression, just steady, rational choices over time. Let's talk about ego. Sometimes we break discipline not because we're emotional, but because we're proud. We think we've outgrown the rule, that we know better, that this time is different. Ego whispers, "You're experienced now. You can handle more risk." That voice is seductive, but it leads to downfall. Discipline is the opposite of ego. It's humility in action. It's saying, "I will respect the system even when I feel superior to it." Ask yourself, how many losses in your career came not from lack of knowledge, but from breaking your own rules? How many times did you say, "Just this once," only to regret it? Every "just this once" becomes a crack in your foundation, and eventually, the house falls. Discipline is about building a house that lasts. Brick by brick, rule by rule, trade by trade. Let me leave you with one last image. Imagine a candle burning in a storm. The only reason it survives is because it's sheltered by habit, by intention, by clarity. That shelter is discipline. Without it, your flame flickers with every gust of emotion. In the next section, we'll explore how to shift your mindset from deterministic to probabilistic, letting go of the illusion of control and embracing the freedom of uncertainty. Picture this. You flip a coin 10 times. It lands on tails 7 times. Now your gut says, heads has to be next. But your logic says, each flip is independent. And still, you feel it. That urge to believe the outcome can be controlled. That same urge bleeds into trading, and it's where most traders fall. We want the market to obey us, to reward our efforts, to follow our rules. But it doesn't, because the market doesn't care. It never did. And the sooner we accept that, the freer we become. Let's take you inside the mindset of Samir. He was smart, meticulous, and had done his homework. He read the books, back-tested systems, watched webinars late into the night. His strategies were solid, but his expectations were rigid. He believed that if he executed perfectly, the outcome must be favorable. That belief worked, until it didn't. His first trade was a winner. Confidence grew. Second trade? A loss. Confusion crept in. Third trade won. Confidence returned. Fourth trade? A big loss. And suddenly Samir's internal voice screamed, "Maybe I'm not cut out for this." It wasn't the market that broke him. It was the unmet expectation of certainty. Samir had fallen into the determinism trap. The idea that if you do the right things, you deserve the right outcomes. That logic works in school. It works in most jobs. But in trading, it's poison. Because trading isn't deterministic, it's probabilistic. This one mental shift changes everything. When you accept that every trade is just one data point in a long series, you stop obsessing over the outcome of the next one. You start thinking in terms of sample sizes, patterns over time, not isolated events. You begin to detach, and in detachment, there is power. Let me introduce you to Ria. She was a trader who suffered deeply after every loss. She'd spiral emotionally, questioning her abilities, tweaking her system after every setback. But one day, something clicked. She heard a mentor say, "You can't judge yourself on a single trade." That line stayed with her. She decided to adopt one new rule. I will no longer judge myself trade by trade. It sounds simple, but it changed everything. Ria stopped seeing losses as failures. She started seeing them as part of the plan. Her emotions stabilized. Her decisions improved. That's the beauty of probabilistic thinking. It frees you from the burden of perfection. And perfectionism is a silent killer in trading. It tells you that anything less than a win is a mistake. It whispers that you have to be right all the time. But probability says otherwise. It says, you can be wrong 4 times out of 10 and still be wildly successful if you manage risk and stay consistent. The goal, then, is not to win every time. The goal is to stay in the game long enough for your edge to play out. Think of a casino owner. He knows that over hundreds of hands, he'll win slightly more than he loses. He doesn't care if a few players win big in a night. He cares that the edge, small but persistent, keeps working over time. You, as a trader, are the casino. Each trade is a bet. Your system is the game. Your risk management is the house edge. When you think this way, you stop reacting emotionally to short-term outcomes. You start playing the long game. But here's the catch. This mindset requires humility. It requires you to admit that you can't predict the future, that you'll be wrong often, and that being wrong isn't a flaw. It's part of the business. You can't control the outcome of a trade, but you can control how you respond to it. You can control your execution. You can control your risk. And that's where your power lies. There's another trap that probabilistic thinking protects you from: the illusion of streaks. You win 3 trades in a row, and suddenly you feel invincible. You take bigger risks. You break rules. The market humbles you. But if you think in probabilities, you know, streaks happen, both good and bad, and neither defines you. Think of Serena, a swing trader who used to increase her position size after 2 wins. "I'm hot right now," she'd tell herself. But her 3rd trade would often be her worst. After recognizing the pattern, she stopped reacting to winning streaks. She started trading each setup as an independent event. Her performance improved, not because her system changed, but because her mind did. This shift isn't just about better results. It's about better peace. When you no longer feel the need to be right every time, your ego loosens its grip. You stop forcing trades. You stop chasing losses. You begin to flow with the market rather than fighting it. Probabilistic thinking doesn't mean being passive. It means being prepared. It means saying, I don't know what this trade will do, but I know how I'll respond either way. That's mastery. It also means giving yourself permission to be wrong, to make mistakes, to learn. And in doing so, you cultivate resilience. You begin to trust the process over the prize. Let's pause here for a metaphor. Imagine you're planting seeds in a field. Each seed is a trade. You water them, tend the soil, and wait. Some will grow, some won't. But if your planting is consistent and your soil is fertile, you'll have a harvest. Not from any one seed, but from the cumulative care. That's trading. One trade doesn't matter. The process does. So ask yourself, do I need to be right, or do I need to be consistent? Am I judging my worth by outcomes or by execution? Can I accept uncertainty, not just as a concept, but as a companion? Because the more you embrace uncertainty, the less power it has over you. In the next section, we'll explore a more dangerous layer of resistance, the ego trap of being right, and how the desire to prove ourselves often leads to our undoing, both emotionally and financially. There's a moment that every trader faces, a moment when a trade goes against you, and instead of exiting as planned, you hold on. Not because your system says to, not because the setup is still valid, but because deep inside, a voice insists, I can't be wrong. That voice is your ego. And in trading, ego isn't just a distraction, it's a liability. Let's meet Devika. She was a disciplined trader, at least on paper. She followed a rules-based system and journaled each decision. But when a trade began to slide into red, something inside her rebelled. She didn't exit. She doubled down. Not because the charts told her to, but because she needed to be right. The loss was painful. But the real damage wasn't to her account. It was to her trust in herself. Why is the need to be right so powerful? Because being wrong feels like a threat. Not just to our analysis, but to our identity. And for many of us, especially high achievers, our sense of self is tied to performance. We learned early on that being correct means being worthy. That mistake equals failure. So when a trade turns, it's not just money on the line, it's our self-image. But here's the paradox. The more you need to be right, the more likely you are to act irrationally. You hold losing trades longer. You exit winners too soon. You ignore red flags and override risk rules, all to protect an image that has nothing to do with actual trading skill. There was a trader named Armin who never used a stop-loss. "I trust my instincts," he'd say. But really, it was pride. He couldn't bear the idea of admitting a wrong call. He believed cutting a loss meant admitting failure. One bad trade turned into a catastrophic loss. Not because of the market, but because he refused to say 3 powerful words. "I was wrong." In trading, those 3 words are not a sign of weakness. They're a mark of maturity. You will be wrong. Frequently. That's not failure. That's reality. The question isn't if you'll be wrong. It's how you respond when you are. Do you double down in anger? Do you seek revenge from the market? Or do you accept, adjust, and move forward? The market doesn't care about your ego. It doesn't reward stubbornness. It punishes it relentlessly. But when you surrender the need to be right, something incredible happens. You stop seeing trades as battles to win and start seeing them as information, as feedback, as part of a larger process. Let's go back to Rishi. He used to take every trade personally. Losses would ruin his mood. Wins inflated his confidence. His emotional roller coaster was exhausting. Then he made a shift. He created a mantra. "I'm not here to be right. I'm here to be responsible." That one line changed how he approached every trade. He stopped overanalyzing, stopped forcing setups, started asking better questions. Did I follow my rules? Was my risk in check? Did I learn something? And gradually, his results improved. Not because the market got easier, but because he got lighter. His ego no longer drove the trades. His discipline did. The ego wants to control, but trading is about surrender. Not to fate or luck, but to process, to structure, to the truth that no one controls the market. Not you, not the institutions, not the smartest analyst. And here's a truth no one talks about. The market owes you nothing. Not for your effort, not for your preparation, not even for your patience. It doesn't owe you a win just because you waited a week for the perfect setup. It doesn't owe you profit just because you journaled every day. The only thing you're owed is the opportunity to execute well. That's it. When you internalize this, ego begins to fade. You stop expecting rewards. You start respecting risk. And that respect turns into power. Another layer of ego is comparison. You see others posting profits online, fast gains, big wins, and you start thinking, why not me? So you push. You abandon your pace to match theirs, and in doing so, you fall out of sync with your own process. Remember, social media shows highlights, not reality. No one posts their pain. No one uploads their panic. You see the win, but not the 50 losses that led to it. And chasing someone else's success path is the fastest way to destroy your own. There's a story of a marathon runner who tried to match the pace of a sprinter. She burned out halfway through and didn't finish the race. Trading is a marathon. Your ego wants it to be a sprint. Let's talk about revenge trading. This is ego at its loudest. You lose a trade, and instead of stepping back, you dive in again. Angry, emotional, reckless. I'll show the market, you say. But the market doesn't care. And now, you've added insult to injury. A better response? Walk away, review the trade, acknowledge the pain, and return only when your mind is calm. That pause, just that single moment of reflection, is where the ego loosens its grip. Think of a master chess player. He doesn't slam pieces when a move fails. He pauses, reassesses, makes the next best move. That's emotional control. That's mastery. And it comes not from avoiding losses, but from managing them with humility. One of the most liberating beliefs a trader can adopt is, I can be wrong and still succeed. Because trading success isn't built on right calls. It's built on right responses. So how do you begin dissolving ego? First, build awareness. Notice when you feel the need to prove something to the market, to yourself, to others. Then pause. Breathe. Ask, am I acting from clarity or from pride? Second, redefine what success means. It's not about wins. It's about consistency, growth, and resilience. If you exit a bad trade early, that's success. If you avoid a setup that doesn't meet your criteria, that's success. If you admit you were wrong and adjust your plan, that is success. And finally, forgive yourself. You'll mess up. You'll let ego win some days. That's okay. What matters is that you return, refocus, recenter. That's the path of the mature trader. In the next section, we'll explore what it really means to build consistency, not through intensity or motivation, but through daily process. Because in the end, greatness is built quietly, one decision at a time. Every trader dreams of consistency. It's the holy grail, the quiet strength behind the legends. Not the biggest win, not the flashiest chart, just steady, repeatable results. But most traders chase intensity instead. They sprint, then crash, burn out, then restart. They want quick transformation, not slow evolution. And yet mastery lives in the mundane. Let's meet Anuj. He wasn't flashy. He didn't post on forums. He didn't trade big size. But every single day, he showed up, reviewed his levels, took only the trades that matched his criteria, tracked his journal, adjusted when needed. There were no viral stories about Anuj. But after 3 years, he had something most don't. Consistency. Because consistency isn't built on ambition, it's built on process. It begins not with a giant leap, but with a quiet question. What can I control today? Most traders focus on the uncontrollables, the market, the news, the price movement. But the pros focus on the controllables, preparation, execution, mindset. There's a story of a guitarist who was asked how he became so skilled. He replied, I played the same scales every morning for 20 years. That's process. Not sexy, not exciting, but solid, stable. In trading, process means having a pre-market routine, journaling each trade, reviewing performance weekly, following defined rules without exception, and most importantly, repeating these actions regardless of outcomes. Let's be honest, this isn't easy. Some days you do everything right and still lose. Other days you break your rules and win. That's the emotional trap. The market rewards bad behavior sometimes. It reinforces shortcuts, but over time, the cost is massive. The key is to stay loyal to the process, not the outcome. If your process is sound, the outcomes will align eventually. And if they don't, you'll at least have clean data to analyze, rather than emotional noise. Let me tell you about Tanya. She used to be a reactive trader. If she won, she celebrated. If she lost, she rewrote her whole system. No structure, no rhythm. Just swings between hope and doubt. Then she discovered a phrase that changed her trajectory. I don't need motivation. I need structure. She built a simple daily plan. Wake up at the same time. Read her trading checklist aloud. Trade only the top 2 setups she had backtested. Journal thoughts and feelings post-trade. Within 6 months, her P&L didn't just improve. It stabilized. The swings disappeared. The variance shrank. Not because she changed strategy, but because she changed how she approached the work. Think of athletes. They don't practice only when they feel like it. They have structure, routines, habits. That's what keeps them ready for game day. Traders need the same, but most don't. They let emotion dictate the day. If they feel confident, they trade aggressively. If they feel fearful, they hesitate or avoid. And so their results follow their moods. Up one day, down the next. Consistency requires decoupling behavior from emotion. You do the right thing, even when you don't feel like it. You follow the plan, even when you're bored, tired, frustrated. That's real discipline, and that's what creates real results. Let's talk about journaling. Most traders skip it. I know what happened, they say. But journaling isn't for memory. It's for pattern recognition. It shows you not just what you did, but why you did it. It reveals emotional triggers, setup reliability, rule violations, hidden biases. You can't improve what you don't track, and you can't trust what you don't understand. Consistency is also about environment. You can't expect clarity if your workspace is chaotic, if your sleep is broken, if your nutrition is poor. You are your edge. And if you don't take care of the system can't take care of the trades. There's a trader named Vikram who transformed his results, not by changing strategy, but by changing his mornings. He stopped checking his phone upon waking, started journaling gratitude, meditated for 10 minutes, then reviewed his trading rules before market open. That one change reduced his impulsive entries by 40%. Why? Because consistency outside the chart leads to consistency inside the chart. There's one more piece: forgiveness. Consistency doesn't mean perfection. You'll still mess up. You'll still skip a journal entry, break a rule, or take a trade out of fear. That's okay. What matters is how you respond. Do you spiral into guilt, or do you course correct and get back on track? A trader with true consistency isn't flawless. They're resilient, and they understand this truth. Boring is profitable. You don't need new strategies every week. You don't need to change time frames daily. You need a system you believe in and the patience to let it play out. Let's return to the metaphor of the candle. In section 6, we said discipline shelters the flame, but consistency is the oil that keeps it burning. Without it, even the strongest discipline fades. So what does a consistent day look like? Wake up clear-headed, review plan, define risk and setups, execute only what aligns, reflect post-trade, shut the platform down, repeat, repeat, repeat. And yes, it's repetitive. That's the point. Because while others chase volatility, you build stability. And stability compounds. Think about compound interest. It doesn't wow you overnight, but over years, it changes lives. So does consistency in trading. Not because of one big day, but because of hundreds of ordinary ones executed well. In the next section, we'll look at the final evolution of the trader's path, where strategy steps back and psychology takes the wheel, where success becomes less about markets and more about the mind that interprets them. You began this journey thinking strategy would be your savior. Indicators, price action, support, and resistance, all the visible mechanics of trading. But if you've come this far, you've likely realized something humbling. Strategy is only half the game. The rest is invisible. It's the voice inside when your setup appears, but doubt creeps in. It's the stillness, or the storm, when the price nears your stop. It's the choice to walk away when your emotions scream to act. That's psychology. At first, we all think it's about the charts. But slowly, day by day, we realize it's about the person reading the chart. Let's revisit Rahul. You remember him, spreadsheet guy, R5,000 goal. Lost to 70,000 in a month because his mindset collapsed. He had strategy, but he lacked emotional clarity. He measured success by profit and punishment by loss. That equation broke him, but something changed. After the spiral, Rahul stopped chasing perfection. He rebuilt from the inside out. He made one core shift. Strategy would serve him, but his psychology would guide him. He stopped being reactive. He started being present. And from that internal change came external consistency. Here's the final truth. Your trading outcomes are always a mirror of your mental and emotional state. Think of two traders using the same system. One makes money, the other loses. Why? Not because of the tool, but because of who is using the tool. Their beliefs, patience, emotional regulation, and self-image all play out in real time on the screen. Let's talk about belief systems again. If you believe that mistakes mean you're a failure, you'll avoid risk, cut winners early, and hold losers too long. If you believe that success must come quickly, you'll overtrade, seek shortcuts, and abandon systems at the first sign of struggle. If you believe that you're never lucky, you'll subconsciously sabotage winning trades, convinced that the other shoe is about to drop. And if you believe that mastery is earned, not given, you'll show up every day, win or lose, and do the work anyway. This is why strategy is not enough. A great system in the hands of a weak mindset becomes a weapon of self-destruction. But even an average system in the hands of a calm, grounded, self-aware trader becomes profitable. Let's bring in a real-world example. Mark Douglas, author of The Disciplined Trader and Trading in the Zone, often said that trading is 80% psychology and only 20% mechanics. The pros know this. That's why they spend more time journaling, meditating, reviewing their mindset, than tweaking their indicators. Because it's not about knowing more, it's about reacting less. Reaction is the enemy of consistency. The market will always throw surprises, news events, reversals, false breakouts. Your strategy can't predict them all, but your state of mind can determine how you respond. Calm traders manage risk before entry. Reactive traders manage emotion after loss. One acts from intention, the other from impulse. Now, how do you develop a trader's psychology? It begins with awareness. You must know what you're thinking and feeling as it's happening. Most people trade unconsciously. They click out of fear or greed, then try to explain it later. The goal is to become conscious in real time, to feel the urge and choose your response. That's mindfulness, and it's a superpower in trading. The next pillar is emotional regulation. Learn to sit with discomfort. When a trade is red and you want to just wait a little longer, pause, breathe, ask, am I following my process or my panic? That pause will save you thousands. Then comes identity. What kind of trader do you believe you are? A disciplined one? A cautious one? A chaotic one? Because your identity drives your behavior. If you see yourself as scattered, undisciplined, or inconsistent, you'll act accordingly. But if you begin to declare and embody a new identity, I am calm under pressure. I follow my plan no matter what. Your actions start to align. Of course, this takes time. Trading is not a sprint. It's not even a marathon. It's a way of being. It will expose your deepest fears, your hidden desires, your unconscious wounds. It will humble you. And in doing so, it offers you something few professions can. The chance to become a better version of yourself. Not just financially, but mentally and emotionally. Trading is a spiritual path dressed in financial clothing. It teaches surrender. It demands patience. It rewards consistency. And it punishes ego. There was one last trader. Let's call him Anirudh. Quiet, private. He journaled every trade for years, rarely spoke about his process. But over time, he became known in his circle as the Rock, unshakable. Not because he never lost, but because nothing could pull him off his center. When asked for his secret, he said simply, "I learned to master myself before I tried to master the market. That's the destination, not massive profits, not prediction mastery, but internal strength, the kind that shows up when everything's going wrong and you remain calm. When you lose, but don't lose yourself. When you win, and don't let it change you." So now we end where we began, with you, sitting at your screen, mouse in hand, chart open, heartbeat steady, or maybe not. You've heard the lessons, you've walked the path. You've seen that the greatest edge isn't in the indicators or strategies. It's in you, your ability to stay present, to choose structure over chaos, to let go of needing to be right, to honor the process above all else. If you can do that, not once, but daily, then trading becomes more than a career. It becomes a mirror, a teacher, a discipline, and one day, a freedom. Now go back to your charts, not to conquer them, but to meet yourself there, again and again. That's the trader's path. That's your path. If you've reached this point, it means you've already taken the hardest step, facing yourself. Because trading is never truly about the market. It's about how you show up to the market. And through every loss, every breakout, every hesitation, and every discipline win, you've seen this truth unfold. The charts are just feedback. The real journey is internal. What you've now realized is that your emotions are not the enemy. Fear isn't weakness. Doubt isn't failure. They are signals, mirrors. They point to where the work is. And when you embrace them, not suppress them, you begin to trade from clarity. You've also seen that consistency isn't built in moments of motivation, but in the quiet commitment to a process. It's not about how loud your wins are. It's about how silent your discipline is. The journey of a trader is layered. You start with strategies, but stay for self-awareness. You chase profits, but discover patience. You seek control, but find surrender. And eventually, you realize you're not here to beat the market. You're here to outgrow the version of you that needed to. If that's not transformation, what is? So as you continue forward, don't seek perfection. Seek presence. Show up daily. Honor your rules. Journal your thoughts. Learn from your impulses. Forgive your mistakes. And above all, respect your journey. Because it's yours. No one else trades with your mind, your past, your wiring. But also, no one else has your potential either. Let that guide you. If this message resonated, I invite you to share this with someone who needs it. Someone on the edge of quitting. Someone whose biggest battle isn't with the market, but with themselves. And if you feel like this story helped you realign, subscribe to Audiobook Sanctuary. Because here, we don't just listen to books. We become the lessons they carry. Until next time, trade not to prove something, trade to become someone.